The cleaning lady whispered, "Don't sign that," and what the millionaire did shocked everyone. Harrison Sterling held the golden pen between his fingers, studying the pages of the contract that would change his life forever. His company, the result of 20 years of hard work, was finally being sold to a group of investors for an amount that would make him even richer than he already was. That was when he felt warm breath close to his ear and heard the whisper that would change everything. "Don't sign that," murmured the female voice so low it almost went unnoticed. Harrison turned slightly and saw Martha, the cleaning lady who had worked in the building for years. She wore the standard blue uniform of the cleaning company, her yellow gloves still damp from work. Her brown eyes held an urgency he had never noticed before. The three lawyers, sitting across the glass table, seemed not to have heard the whisper. To say, Julian Arthur, his personal lawyer, drummed his fingers on the table impatiently. The other two representatives of the buying group talked to each other in low voices, occasionally checking their phones. "Excuse me, ma'am," said Dr. Arthur, looking at Martha with obvious irritation. "We're in a very important meeting here." Martha lowered her eyes and pretended to organize some papers on the cleaning cart, but Harrison noticed she hadn't moved away completely. There was something in her posture, a tension he couldn't ignore. "Excuse me," Harrison said, placing the pen on the table. "Can you give me a few minutes? I want to review some specific clauses one last time." "Mr. Sterling," interrupted Dr. Lawrence Miller, one of the buyer's lawyers, "we've already reviewed this contract dozens of times over the past few weeks. Every point has been discussed and agreed upon. The investors are waiting for your confirmation to release the first installment of the payment. I understand, Doctor, but this is a very important decision. A few minutes won't make a difference." Dr. Arthur sighed impatiently. "Harrison, you said yourself that you were eager to close this deal and retire. Your children are studying abroad. Your wife wants to travel the world. This contract will make all those dreams come true." "I know, Julian, but—" Harrison looked at Martha again. She was organizing the cart, but her movements seemed nervous, almost desperate. Something was wrong here. He could feel it. "Look, I'm going to take a quick walk. 15 minutes, and I'll be back to sign." The lawyers exchanged annoyed glances, but they couldn't object. Harrison got up and walked toward the door. In the hallway, he found Martha waiting near the elevator. "What was that in there?" he asked, keeping his voice low. Martha looked around, making sure they were alone. "Mr. Sterling, I know this isn't my business, but I need to talk to you. Last night, when I was cleaning Dr. Arthur's office, I overheard a phone conversation." "What kind of conversation?" "He was talking to someone about you. He said that once you signed the contract, you'd discover some unpleasant surprises that weren't properly explained in the papers." Harrison felt a knot in his stomach. Martha continued, her words rushing out. "I don't understand much about legal stuff, but he laughed when he said you'd be left with only the crumbs of everything you built." "Are you sure about what you heard?" "Absolutely, Mr. Sterling. I was cleaning right next to his desk. He didn't even notice me there, like always. People talk as if we were invisible." Harrison ran his hand through his dark hair, thinking quickly. Martha seemed sincere, but it was hard to believe that Julian, his lawyer for over 10 years, could be involved in something shady. "Martha, could you meet me here after hours? Around 7 o'clock. "Yes, I can, sir." "But will you go back there and sign the paper?" "Not sure yet. I need to think." Harrison returned to the meeting room, trying to maintain his composure. The three lawyers received him with anxious smiles. "Everything all right, Harrison?" asked Dr. Arthur. "Can we proceed? Actually, something unexpected came up. I'll need to postpone the signing until tomorrow." The silence that settled over the room was heavy. Dr. Lawrence Miller was the first to speak. "Mr. Sterling, this is highly irregular. Our clients have already arranged the entire financial operation based on today's signing. A postponement could cause serious complications." "Complications like what?" "Well, the investors could interpret it as a lack of commitment. They have other deals on the table. If this one doesn't go through today, they might withdraw the offer permanently." Harrison studied the faces of the three men. "Doctor." Arthur seemed genuinely concerned, but there was something in the look of the other two that bothered him, an impatience that went beyond the professional. "Understand my position. I'm selling the work of my entire life. One extra night to think it over seems reasonable to me." "Harrison," Dr. Arthur leaned forward, Are you okay? You seem nervous, different. Did something happen? I'm fine, just being cautious. Listen, interjected the third lawyer, Dr. Peter Shaw, who had remained silent until then. If there's any specific question about the contract, we can clarify it right now. There's no need for a postponement. What exactly are the terms of the stock transfer? Dr. Arthur seemed surprised by the question. Harrison, you approved these terms yourself. You're selling 85% of your shares in Sterling Ventures for the agreed $120 million. The remaining 15% stay with you as a lifetime consultant. And what about the management of the company? The new partners take over operational management. You remain as honorary chairman, as requested. Everything seemed normal, but Martha's words echoed in his mind. Only with the crumbs of everything you built. I need to review some specific details calmly. Tomorrow morning I'll sign. The three lawyers exchanged tense looks. Dr. Miller put the documents back in his leather briefcase with abrupt movements. Very well, Mr. Sterling. I hope you understand that our clients may not accept any further changes after tomorrow. I understand perfectly. After the lawyers left, Harrison remained alone in the meeting room. His company occupied 3 floors of a commercial building in the financial district, New York City. Through the windows, he could see the intense movement of the city's central area. All of that would belong to the new partners in less than 24 hours. At 7 o'clock, as agreed, Martha knocked on the door of his office. She had traded her uniform for a simple dress and carried a worn leather handbag. Good evening, Mr. Sterling. Please sit down, Martha. I want you to tell me exactly what you heard yesterday. Martha settled into the chair across from his desk, visibly uncomfortable with the situation. Well, I was cleaning around 10 o'clock at night. Dr. Arthur was still in his office talking on the phone. At first I didn't pay attention, but when I heard your name, I ended up overhearing without meaning to. Go on. He was saying things like, Sterling will only find out later, and once he signs, there's no turning back. The person on the other end must have asked something because he answered, no, he doesn't know about the company's debts being transferred along with it. Harrison felt his blood run cold. What debts? His company had a healthy cash flow and few loans. Did he mention amounts? He mentioned almost 30 million that would be left on your account even after the sale. 30 million of what? I don't know, Mr. Sterling, but he laughed when he said you were going to learn the hard way how the business world works. Harrison stood up and began pacing the room. If what Martha had heard was true, he was being deceived in the most grotesque way. But how could that be possible? Julian was his personal attorney. He knew every detail of the company. Martha, do you have children? I have 3, Mr. Sterling. All grown up, thank God. Have you been working here long? Almost 15 years. I started when you were still setting up the company on the first 2 floors. 15 years. Martha had watched his company grow from the very beginning. She knew practically every employee, had access to every office, and heard conversations that important people had in her presence, as if she were invisible. Why are you helping me? Why didn't you just keep quiet? Martha hesitated for a moment, fiddling with her purse strap. My husband worked 30 years at a company as a supervisor. When it was sold, they promised he would stay in his position. A week after the signing, they let him go without any severance. They said the new owner didn't need him. I'm sorry to hear that. The difference is my husband had no choice. You still do. Harrison sat back down, looking at Martha with a respect he had never felt for her before. You could get into trouble if they find out you told me this. I'm used to trouble, Mr. Sterling, but I couldn't stay quiet watching you be deceived like that. How can I verify that what you heard is true? I don't know, sir. All I know is that Dr. Arthur put some papers in a red folder inside his safe. I saw him do it after the phone call. A safe. Harrison didn't know Julian had a safe in his office. Martha, could you get access to that folder? She immediately shook her head. Oh no, Mr. Sterling, that would be stealing. I only clean and organize. I've never touched anything that wasn't trash or clutter. You're right, I'm sorry for suggesting that. They sat in silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own thoughts. Harrison tried to process all the information and decide how to proceed. Mr. Sterling, Martha broke the silence, may I make a suggestion? Of course. Why don't you ask to see the original contract in Dr. Arthur's office? Before signing, compare it with what they brought today. If it's all the same, no problem. If it's different... Martha's suggestion was simple, but it made perfect sense. Why hadn't he thought of that before? Martha, you're very smart. No, Mr. Sterling. It's just that when you don't have money, you learn to be suspicious. Harrison smiled for the first time that day. That simple woman whom he barely noticed in the company hallways might be saving his financial life. I'll call Julian right now and ask to see the original documents. I think it's better not to warn him, Mr. Sterling. What if he hides something before you get there? Once again, Martha showed a sharpness that impressed Harrison. She was right. If there really was something wrong, warning Julian in advance would be a mistake. Then I'll show up at his office early tomorrow morning, before the meeting. May I give you another suggestion? Please. Take someone you trust with you. An accountant or another lawyer. If there's something wrong with the papers, you'll need help understanding it. Harrison thought quickly. His personal accountant, David Thompson, had been handling his personal finances for over 8 years. He was a serious and competent person. I'll call David right now. Can I leave now, Mr. Sterling? Of course, Martha, and thank you so much for everything. I don't know how to thank you. No need to thank me. I just hope everything works out. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. After Martha left, Harrison called David Thompson, explaining the situation without getting into compromising details. They agreed to meet at Dr. Arthur's office at 7 o'clock the following morning. That night, Harrison could barely sleep. Lying in his king-size bed in his penthouse apartment on the Upper East Side, he stared at the ceiling, trying to understand how Julian could be involved in something dishonest. They had known each other since law school and had built a solid friendship over the years. At 6:30 in the morning, Harrison was already dressed and ready to leave. His wife, Catherine, was still asleep. She had arrived the night before from a trip to Aspen with her friends and was still tired. David was already waiting in the lobby of the building where Dr. Arthur's office was located, on Park Avenue. Harrison, you were very mysterious on the phone yesterday. What's going on? I'd rather explain when we get upstairs. It might just be my paranoia. They took the elevator to the 12th floor. The receptionist still hadn't arrived, but Dr. Arthur was already in his office, as Harrison had confirmed by his car in the parking lot. Good morning, Julian. Harrison walked into the room with David. Dr. Arthur looked up from his computer, clearly surprised by the morning visit. Harrison, David, what a surprise. Did something happen? I wanted to take a look at the original contracts before today's signing. Original contracts? Yes, the versions you prepared here at the office. I want to compare them with the copies you gave me yesterday. Doctor, Arthur seemed to hesitate for a fraction of a second, but quickly regained his composure. Of course, no problem. They're all here in your case file. He opened a hanging file and pulled out a blue folder. David stepped closer and began examining the documents alongside Harrison. Julian, Harrison kept his tone casual, do you happen to have a copy of the documents in a red folder too? The question had the effect of a gunshot. Dr. Arthur visibly stiffened. Red folder? No, why? Just asking. David flipped through the contracts attentively, his expression gradually changing. As an experienced accountant, he could quickly interpret the financial implications of each clause. Harrison, David murmured, keeping his voice low, there are some things here I need to show you. Dr. Arthur tried to move closer to see what David was pointing at, but Harrison subtly blocked his view. Julian, could you bring us some coffee? This review is going to take a while. Sure. I'll be right back. As soon as Dr. Arthur left the room, David turned to Harrison with a worried expression. Harrison, this contract is very different from what you described to me yesterday. According to these papers, you're going to assume all the company's debts, including loans I didn't even know existed. What loans? There's a $15 million line of credit with a mortgage guarantee on your personal apartment, and another $12 million loan using the company's shares as collateral. Harrison felt his legs go weak. He hadn't authorized any loan using his apartment as collateral. That's impossible, David. I never signed an authorization to mortgage my apartment. Here's the copy of the deed, your signature and notarization. Harrison took the document and examined the signature. It really did look like his, but he didn't remember having signed it. David, when was this deed made? According to the date here, it was 3 months ago, September 22nd. Harrison thought quickly. In September, he had traveled to a business fair in Portland. He had left some documents for Julian to handle in his absence, including powers of attorney to take care of the company's bureaucratic matters. David, I think the power of attorney I left behind was used for other purposes. What kind of power of attorney? General authority to handle company matters, but specifically for simple administrative issues. I never imagined it could be used to mortgage my house. David kept examining the documents. His expression grew increasingly grim. Harrison, there's more. According to this contract, after the sale, you'll remain responsible for all these debts. The new partners keep only the clean assets. What do you mean? They keep the company without debts, and you keep the debts without the company. Harrison had to sit down. In just a few hours, he had discovered he was the victim of an elaborate scheme. Julian hadn't merely misused his power of attorney. He had structured the sale in a way that left Harrison in a terrible financial situation. How much am I going to owe in total? By my calculations, around 32 million. The number matched exactly what Martha had overheard during the phone call. Dr. Arthur returned to the room carrying a tray of coffee. How's the review going? Did you find everything in order? Harrison and David exchanged a quick glance. It was important not to let on that they had discovered the fraud. Almost everything checks out, replied Harrison, trying to keep his voice steady. I just have a few questions about the liability clauses for pre-existing debts. Ah yes, that's standard in transactions of this type. Pre-existing debts always remain with the seller, unless specifically agreed otherwise. And in our case? In our case, the debts stay with you, as agreed from the start of negotiations. Julian's brazen lie confirmed every suspicion. Harrison had never agreed to anything of the sort. On the contrary, he had always made it clear that he wanted to sell the company free of debt. Julian, could you show me where it specifies that I agreed to that? Dr. Arthur quickly flipped through the papers and pointed to a clause at the end of the contract. Here, paragraph 23. The seller assumes full responsibility for all financial obligations of the company existing as of the date of signing. Strange, I don't remember seeing this clause in the earlier versions. Harrison, you yourself approved this clause 2 weeks ago. You said there would be no problem because the company's debts were small. Another lie. Harrison had never said such a thing. Julian, I need to talk to you in private. David, could you wait in the reception area? David took the hint and left the room, discreetly taking a copy of the contracts with him. What's going on, Harrison? You seem suspicious of me. Harrison decided to confront the situation head-on. Julian, someone told me you made comments about this deal that worried me. What kind of comments? That I'm going to discover unpleasant surprises after signing the contract. Dr. Arthur visibly paled. Who said that? Does it matter? Harrison, you're being influenced by people who don't understand the complexity of this type of operation. It's natural for there to be adjustments and discoveries during the process. Julian, answer me directly. Am I going to owe 30 million after signing this contract? The silence that followed was telling. Dr. Arthur lowered his eyes and began nervously organizing the papers on the desk. Harrison, the market is very competitive. The investors only agreed to make the purchase on these terms. If we don't close today, we might lose the opportunity forever. You're dodging my question. The debts do exist, but with the money from the sale, you'll be able to pay them off and still have a lot left over. How much will be left over? Well, after paying everything off, about 15 or 20 million. Harrison quickly did the math. If the company was worth 120 million, but he would only get 20 million net, that meant he was selling for far below market value. Julian, did you do a realistic valuation of the company? Of course I did. Because from what I'm calculating, my company is worth much more than 120 million. Dr. Arthur started to sweat. Harrison realized he had hit the nail on the head. "Harrison, you need to understand that the market—" "Julian, I want a second opinion. I'm going to hire another lawyer to review all of this." "That will delay the process significantly. The investors might back out." "Then let them back out." Harrison stood up and walked toward the door. "Julian, today's meeting is cancelled. I'm going to review everything very carefully before making any decision." "Harrison, wait, you're making a mistake. The mistake would be signing this contract without fully understanding what I'm doing." Harrison left the room and found David in the reception area, flipping through a magazine. "How did it go?" "Terrible. Everything you found out is correct." Julian practically admitted that I'm being cheated. "What are you going to do now?" "First, I'm going to find another lawyer." "Do you know anyone specializing in mergers and acquisitions?" "I know Dr. Elizabeth Grant. Excellent professional and absolutely honest." "Can you schedule a meeting with her for today?" "I can try." They went down to the parking garage in silence. Harrison was processing the magnitude of the betrayal he had uncovered. Julian wasn't just his lawyer. He was someone he trusted completely. "David, one question. How is it possible that I didn't know about those 27 million in loans?" "Well, if they were made using power of attorney, the documents never went through you. They probably went straight to Julian's office. But the bank statements, the installments, if the loans were structured to be paid only upon the sale of the company, there wouldn't be monthly installments. And if the accounts were opened in the company's name, you'd only know if you checked the detailed balance sheets." Harrison rarely checked the detailed balance sheets. He trusted the company's accountant and Julian to handle those matters. "David, I want you to do a complete audit of the company's finances. I need to know exactly what the real situation is. It can be done, but it'll take a few weeks." "We don't have a few weeks. I need basic information by tomorrow. I can do a preliminary assessment today, but it's going to be a lot of work. Do whatever it takes. And David, absolute confidentiality on this." "Of course, but Harrison, can I make a suggestion?" "Always. You should talk to your wife about this. If there really are guarantees on your apartment, she needs to know." Harrison had completely forgotten about Catherine. How could he tell her that their home was being used as collateral for loans he didn't even know existed? Arriving home around 10 o'clock, he found Catherine having breakfast on the apartment's balcony. She was wearing a pink silk robe and reading a home decor magazine. "Hey, my love, I thought you were signing the contracts this morning." "Change of plans, I'm postponing the signing." Catherine looked up from her magazine, surprised. "Postponing? Why?" "Some issues came up that I need to clarify first." "What kind of issues?" Harrison sat down next to her, trying to find the right words. "Catherine, I found out there are some company debts I didn't know about. I need to understand the situation better before selling." "Big debts?" "Relatively speaking, yes." Catherine closed the magazine and turned fully toward him. "Harrison, you're worrying me. Speak clearly. How much is it?" "About 30 million. Catherine's face went pale. 30 million? How could you not know about 30 million in debts?" "It's a long story. The important thing now is to resolve the situation." "Solve it how? Do we have 30 million to pay these debts?" Harrison hesitated. Technically, after selling the company, he would have the money. But if the company was worth more than the 120 million offered, he was being wronged twice. "Catherine, I need to tell you something. Our apartment may be being used as collateral for part of these debts." Catherine stood up abruptly, knocking over the coffee cup. "What? What do you mean, our apartment?" "Julian used a power of attorney I'd given him to take out a loan using the apartment as collateral." "But is that possible? Can he do that without my authorization?" "I don't know, Catherine. I'm trying to understand the situation." Catherine began to pace nervously on the balcony. "Harrison, are you telling me we could lose our home because of debts you didn't even know existed?" "We'll solve this, Catherine. I'm already taking care of everything." "Solve it how? If you don't sign the sale, how will you pay these debts?" "Good question. If Harrison didn't sell the company, he wouldn't have the money to pay off the loans. If he did sell, he'd be left with a much smaller amount than he should. I'm hiring other professionals to help me, a specialized lawyer and an accountant to do a complete audit. Catherine sat down again, but now with a tense expression. In 20 years of marriage, you've never hidden financial problems from me. Why is this happening now? I didn't hide anything, Catherine. I was deceived by people I trusted. Julian? Mostly him. Catherine stayed silent for a few minutes, processing the information. Harrison, who discovered these irregularities? A company employee, Martha from housekeeping. The cleaning lady? Yeah, she overheard a conversation of Julian's and decided to warn me. And you believe her more than your own lawyer? Catherine, I saw the documents. The irregularities are real. Catherine sighed deeply. What do you need me to do? For now, nothing. I just wanted you to know about the situation. Harrison, I want to see all those documents. I want to understand exactly what's happening with our assets. Of course, I'll ask David to organize everything clearly for you. Harrison's phone rang. It was David. Harrison, I managed to schedule with Dr. Elizabeth for 2 in the afternoon, and I'm reviewing the company's bank statements. There are very strange things here. What kind of things? Large transfers to accounts I don't recognize, and several transactions that don't match the company's normal flow. Can you give details? I'd rather show you in person. Can I stop by your place before the meeting with the lawyer? Sure, Catherine wants to participate too. No problem, see you later. Catherine had overheard the conversation. Transfers to unknown accounts? It seems so. Harrison, do you think Julian was stealing money from the company? Catherine's question was direct and frightening. If Julian really was embezzling funds, the situation was much more serious than a simple, poorly structured sale. I hope not, Catherine, but I'm starting to suspect everything. At 11:30, David arrived at the apartment carrying a folder full of documents. Catherine had gotten ready and was waiting for them in the living room. Good afternoon, Catherine. I'm sorry about all these problems. Good afternoon, David. Show us everything you found. David opened the folder and organized the papers on the coffee table. First, about the loans. There really are 2 large credit operations, totaling $27 million. One was made using your apartment as collateral, the other using the company's shares. Catherine examined the mortgage documents. This signature is really Harrison's, but I've never seen this document before. According to the dates, it was made when Harrison was traveling in September. I remember that trip. Catherine turned to her husband. You left several documents for Julian to handle, including matters related to our pension plan. That's true, but I don't remember authorizing a mortgage. David picked up another document. Harrison, this is the power of attorney you signed. Take a look at the powers you granted. Harrison read carefully. The power of attorney was indeed very broad, allowing the lawyer to make all necessary decisions for the management of the grantor's business affairs. David, does a power of attorney like this allow taking out loans? Unfortunately, yes. It's very broad. Catherine shook her head. Harrison, how could you sign something like that without reading it? Catherine, I trusted Julian. I thought it was just for simple bureaucratic matters. Trusted. Past tense. David continued explaining the other findings. Now, about the suspicious transfers. Over the last 6 months, roughly $8 million were transferred out of the company account to an account in the name of Jam Consulting LLC. Jam? Harrison thought quickly. Julian's initials are JAM Julian Arthur Miller. That's exactly what I thought. This Jam company was opened 7 months ago, just days before the first transfers. Catherine was writing everything down in a notebook. David, were these transfers authorized by Harrison? According to the records, yes, but Harrison, do you remember authorizing payments to a consulting company? I don't remember any company called Jam, and I certainly didn't authorize $8 million in payments. There's more. The Jam company made several transfers to accounts abroad, Cayman Islands, Panama, Switzerland. Harrison felt a tightness in his chest. Julian wasn't just structuring the sale of the company poorly, he was literally stealing money and sending it overseas. David, can you trace those accounts abroad? Not easily, but Dr. Elizabeth can guide us on the legal procedures. Catherine closed her notebook firmly. Harrison, you were completely deceived by that man. He's not only selling your company at a low price, but he's been stealing money for months. It seems so. And meanwhile, you almost signed a contract that would have left you responsible for debts he himself created. The scale of the scheme became clearer with every new discovery. Julian had used Harrison's trust to put together a complex plan for personal enrichment. David, can you figure out how much the company is actually worth? Based on the latest balance sheets, considering the diverted funds and the real debts, I'd say it's worth about 200 million. 200 million? Yes. Julian was selling it for 120. You would have walked away with 20 million net, but the company is worth 200. Catherine did the math quickly. So, in the end, they were going to split 180 million, and Harrison would get 20. Roughly that. Harrison's phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. Hello? Mr. Sterling, this is Martha. Hi, Martha, is everything okay? Mr. Sterling, something happened here that you need to know about. Can I talk? Of course. Dr. Arthur came to the office an hour ago. He was very nervous, going through the files and grabbing several papers. His secretary was here too, helping him carry some boxes. Boxes of documents? Yes, sir. And they were talking about speeding up the timeline and that they couldn't wait any longer. Martha, are they still there? No, they left about 20 minutes ago. But Mr. Sterling, before leaving, Dr. Arthur asked the receptionist if I still worked here. Why? I don't know, but it scared me. I think he found out I spoke with you. Harrison exchanged a worried look with Catherine and David. Martha, can you leave the building right now and go home? Don't go back to work until I talk to you. Can I? But Mr. Sterling, I need to work. I have bills to pay. Don't worry about that for now. I'll take care of everything. Do you think I'm in danger? I don't know, Martha, but I'd rather not take any risks. After hanging up, Harrison explained the situation to Catherine and David. Julian is removing documents from the company. That's not a good sign. He must be trying to destroy evidence, said David, and possibly getting ready to speed something up, added Catherine. We need to get ahead of him. Let's head to the meeting with Dr. Elizabeth right now. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, Dr. Elizabeth Grant's office was on Fifth Avenue, in an elegant modern building. She received them in a spacious room with bookshelves full of law books and a panoramic view of the city. Good afternoon. David briefly explained the situation to me over the phone, but I'd like you to tell me all the details. For 40 minutes, Harrison recounted the entire story, from Martha's whisper to the most recent discoveries about the money embezzlement. Dr. Elizabeth took detailed notes and asked several technical questions. Well, the situation is serious, but not impossible to resolve. You have three main problems: the irregular loans, the misappropriation of funds, and the attempted sale below market value. What can we do? First, we're going to contest the validity of the loans. A general power of attorney may not be sufficient for operations of this magnitude, especially involving personal assets like the apartment. And what about the embezzlement? That's more complicated. We need to prove that the authorization signatures were forged or obtained through fraud. Do you have any material to prove that? Harrison thought for a moment. Martha mentioned that Julian kept some documents in a red folder inside a safe. There could be evidence in there. How do you plan to access those documents? We don't know yet. Dr. Elizabeth reflected for a few moments. I'm going to file for injunctive relief to block any attempt to sell the company until we clarify the situation. I'm also going to request a freeze on Jam Consulting LLC's accounts. Will that stop Julian from continuing to transfer money? Yes, if we get the preliminary injunction today. And could he react badly to that? He probably will. That's why I suggest you all be careful in the coming weeks. Desperate people can do unthinkable things. Catherine leaned forward. Doctor, what happens if we actually manage to prove all of this? In the best-case scenario, you recover the $8 million that were embezzled, cancel the irregular loans, and you can still sue Julian for emotional damages. And in the worst-case scenario? In the worst case, you only manage to block the sale of the company, but you're left responsible for the loans. Even so, it would be better than the current situation. Leaving the lawyer's office, Harrison felt more optimistic. At least now he had a clear action plan and competent professionals working for him. "Catherine, I'll drop you off at home, and then I'm going to talk to Martha in person. I want to thank her and make sure she's safe." "Can I come along?" "Of course." Martha lived in a housing complex in the Bronx, in the east side of New York City. The apartment was simple but very organized. She received them visibly nervous. "Come in, Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Catherine. Sorry about the modest place." "Your home is lovely, Martha," Catherine replied sincerely, "and very well kept." "Thank you, Mrs. Catherine." Harrison sat down in the small but cozy living room. "Martha, I came to thank you in person for everything you did. Without your help, I would have signed a contract that would have ruined me." "I just did what I thought was right, Mr. Sterling. You saved my assets and possibly my marriage. How can I repay you?" Martha hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "You don't need to repay me anything, sir. I just want everything to work out." Catherine leaned forward. "Martha, may I ask you something personal? Why did you risk your job to help my husband?" Martha looked at her hands for a moment before answering. "Mrs. Catherine, I've been cleaning offices for 15 years. In all that time, I've seen a lot. I've seen good people being deceived. I've seen dishonest people getting rich. I've seen honest employees getting fired to cover up thefts by their bosses." "And that bothered you?" "Very much. But I could never do anything, because no one would listen to me. Who's going to believe a cleaning lady over a lawyer with a doctorate? But this time was different. This time I thought, if I do nothing, I'll feel like an accomplice. Mr. Sterling has always been kind to me, always said good morning, asked how I was doing. Most bosses don't even see us." Harrison felt a lump in his throat. He really had always greeted Martha, but he never imagined it meant so much to her. "Martha, I want to make you an offer." "What offer, Mr. Sterling?" "Once we resolve this whole situation, I'd like you to come work directly for my company, not as a cleaning lady, but in an administrative role." "Mr. Sterling, I don't have the education for office work." "You've shown more intelligence and honesty than people with college degrees. We can teach the rest." Martha was moved but still hesitant. "Let me help sort out this mess first. Then we can talk about it calmly." Harrison's phone rang. It was Dr. Elizabeth. "Harrison, I have good news. I got the injunction blocking the sale of the company and the accounts of Jam Consulting LLC. "Excellent. But I have bad news too. Julian already found out about the blocks, and he's very upset. He called the office making threats." "What kind of threats?" "He said he's going to sue you for libel and defamation, and that he'll destroy your reputation in the market." "Can he do that?" "He can try, but he won't get very far. We have solid evidence against him." After hanging up, Harrison explained the news to Catherine and Martha. "The important thing is that we managed to block everything. Now it's just a matter of time until we prove the wrongdoing." "And what about the threats?" asked Catherine. Dr. Elizabeth didn't seem concerned. Martha, who had been listening to the conversation in silence, spoke up. "Mr. Sterling, can I say something?" "Of course. I know someone who can help with the red folder in the safe." "What do you mean?" "My son works for the company that maintains the safes. He might know how to access it without damaging it." "Martha, that would be illegal, I know. But if the papers in there prove that you were robbed, wouldn't it be more like recovering what's yours?" Martha's suggestion was tempting, but Harrison knew he couldn't accept it. "Martha, I can't ask you and your son to take that risk. We'll resolve everything through legal means." "But Mr. Sterling, going through legal means could take years." "Then we'll be patient," Catherine interjected in the conversation. "Harrison, can I speak with you in private?" They stepped away into the small hallway of the apartment. "Harrison, I think we should consider Martha's suggestion." "Catherine, listen, if Julian really has evidence of his own guilt locked away in that safe, we could speed up the process a lot. But it would be illegal. And what he did to you wasn't illegal." Catherine had a point. Julian had violated Harrison's trust in a systematic and elaborate way. "Even so, Catherine, I can't involve Martha and her son in something like this. Then let's not involve them. Let's just accept if they offer on their own free will. The difference is subtle, but it is a difference." They returned to the room where Martha was waiting anxiously. Martha, we can't accept you taking risks on our behalf. But if you, of your own free will, manage to get any information that helps us, we'll be grateful. Martha understood the message perfectly. Mr. Sterling, I'll talk to my son tonight. If he knows anything that could help, I'll tell you. Perfect. But there's one thing I can do without taking any risks. I can keep working there and pay attention to the conversations and movements. Do you think it's safe? I think so. They don't even notice I exist. All right then, but if anything seems off, you leave immediately. Will do. On the way back home, Catherine was pensive. Harrison, I'm impressed with Martha. Why? She's risking a lot to help someone she barely knows. That's rare these days. That's true, she's a special person. And smart. Her suggestions were all spot on. Harrison agreed. Martha had shown a keen insight and courage that few would have in a similar situation. Catherine, when we get all this resolved, I really will offer her a better job. I think that's a great idea. When they got home, they found an unpleasant surprise, Doctor. Julian Arthur was sitting in the building's lobby waiting. Harrison, we need to talk urgently. Julian, we have nothing to talk about. You're making a terrible mistake. You let someone influence you against me. The evidence speaks for itself. What evidence? You're seeing irregularities where there are none. Catherine approached the group. Dr. Arthur, the irregularities are documented. 8 million in unauthorized transfers, loans made without my husband's knowledge. Mrs. Sterling, these procedures are normal in complex operations. Your husband authorized everything through power of attorney. A power of attorney for bureaucratic matters, not for mortgaging our home. Dr. Arthur realized he wouldn't convince them easily. He changed his strategy. Harrison, you blocked my personal accounts. That's affecting my family, my commitments. Your personal accounts or JAM Consulting's accounts. JAM is a legitimate consulting firm that I opened to provide services for some clients, including your company. 8 million worth of services. That was 6 months of intense work to structure the sale of your company. Julian, 8 million for 6 months of work. The amount is proportional to the complexity and the results achieved. Julian's explanation was absurd, but he defended it with conviction. Julian, we'll settle this in court. There's nothing more to discuss here. Harrison, you'll regret this decision. You're destroying a decades-long friendship over misunderstandings. The misunderstandings are yours, not mine. Dr. Arthur stood up, visibly upset. Very well. But know that I will defend myself against all these unfounded accusations, and I'll sue everyone involved in this conspiracy against my reputation. Feel free. After Julian left, Harrison and Catherine went up to the apartment in silence. The confrontation had been unpleasant, but necessary. Harrison, he genuinely seemed convinced he did nothing wrong. Either he's a very good actor, or he really believes his own lies. Dishonest people sometimes convince themselves they're right. Or maybe I'm the one seeing irregularities where there are none. Harrison, you saw the documents. Numbers don't lie. It was true. Regardless of Julian's justifications, the facts were objective. 8 million had left the company account without clear authorization from Harrison. The next day, Martha called early in the morning. Mr. Sterling, I have important news. Go ahead. I talked to my son last night. He said he can help, but we need to do it this morning. Why the rush? Because the company that services the safes is going to replace the entire system next week. After that, my son won't have access anymore. Martha, are you sure you want to do this? I am, Mr. Sterling. If there's something in that safe that proves you were robbed, it needs to be found. Where do you want to meet? My son suggested we do it at the building itself during normal business hours. That way it won't look suspicious. What time? Around 10 o'clock. My son will be there doing preventive maintenance on the system. Martha, if something goes wrong... Mr. Sterling, we've come too far to give up now. At 9:30, Harrison was in the parking lot of the building where Dr. Arthur's office was located. At 10 o'clock, he met Martha at the reception desk. My son is already upstairs. He said the safe can be opened without leaving a trace. What if they find out? He'll make it look like a technical problem during maintenance. They went up to the 12th floor. The office was busy, with secretaries and lawyers working normally. Dr. Arthur was not present. In his office, a young man of about 25 was working on an electronic panel next to the safe. "This is my son, Jason." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Sterling. My mother told me the whole situation. Can you open the safe without damaging it?" "Yes, sir. The system is old. I can make it look like a temporary electronic failure." Jason worked on the panel for 15 minutes. Finally, the safe beeped and the door opened. "Done. You have about 10 minutes before I need to close it again." Harrison entered the office and approached the safe. There were several organized folders on the top shelf. One of them was red, as Martha had mentioned. He opened the red folder and found documents that shocked him. There were copies of contracts different from the ones he had seen, with completely different amounts and terms. "Martha, look at this. The original contract called for the sale at 200 million, not 120. "What do you mean?" "Julian forged the contract to reduce the sale value by 80 million. There were more compromising documents, bank statements showing transfers from Jam Consulting to Julian's personal accounts, and a letter from a Swiss bank confirming the opening of accounts in his name. Mr. Sterling, there are also some papers about other clients." Harrison examined them quickly. Julian had apparently applied similar schemes to other clients, always using broad powers of attorney to carry out unauthorized transactions. "Jason, can you make copies of these documents?" "I have a portable scanner in my tool bag." In 5 minutes, Jason had scanned all the compromising documents. Harrison put the originals back in the red folder, in the same order he found them. "Done, Mr. Sterling. Now I'll close the safe and make it look like there was a technical failure that was fixed." "Jason, I don't know how to thank you." "No need to thank me, sir. My mother always taught me that doing the right thing is an obligation, not a favor." Leaving the office, Harrison felt relieved and outraged at the same time. Julian hadn't just taken advantage of his trust. He had put together a large-scale criminal scheme. "Martha, you and Jason saved my life. What matters is that now you have a way to prove everything. I'm taking these documents to Dr. Elizabeth today. And what about my job here in the building?" "I think it's better if you don't come back. It's risky. But, Mr. Sterling, I need to work." "Martha, you're not going to be out of work. I have a definite proposal for you." "What proposal?" "I want you to come work at my company as a quality and transparency supervisor. The salary will be 3 times what you make now." "Mr. Sterling, I don't know if I'm qualified." "Martha, you've shown more competence and character than people with college degrees. The rest you can learn." "And my son, will he have any problem for having helped?" "Quite the opposite. I want to hire him as a security consultant too." Martha felt emotional. "Mr. Sterling, why are you doing all of this?" "Because you deserve it. And because I need honest people working with me." Early in the afternoon, Harrison was again at Dr. Elizabeth's office, this time with Catherine and the documents obtained from the safe. "Dr. Elizabeth, we have definitive evidence against Julian." She carefully examined all the scanned documents. "Harrison, this is very serious. Julian didn't just embezzle money from your company. He falsified the sale price to pocket an extra 80 million. What can we do with this evidence?" "First, I'm going to file criminal charges against him. This constitutes fraud, document forgery, and the creation of a fraudulent financial scheme." "And civilly?" "We'll sue for material and moral damages. By my calculations, considering the embezzled amounts and the losses from the undervalued sale, we're talking more than 100 million. Catherine leaned forward. "Doctor, are you saying that in the end, Harrison could actually come out making money from all of this? If we can prove everything and recover the amounts, yes, but it's going to be a long process." "How long?" "Between 2 and 5 years. And in the meantime, what about the financial situation? With the court-ordered freezes we obtained, Julian can no longer touch the embezzled money, and Harrison's company continues to operate normally." "And the loans?" "With this evidence, we can easily void the loans that were made improperly." Harrison felt optimistic for the first time in weeks. "Dr. Elizabeth, when can we formalize all of this?" "I'll prepare all the petitions today. I'll file everything tomorrow morning." "And Julian? He'll be served within 48 hours. After that, he'll have a deadline to present his defense." "Could he try something desperate?" "It's possible. That's why you should stay extra vigilant in the coming weeks." Leaving the lawyer's office, Harrison called Martha. Martha, everything is going well. Tomorrow we'll formalize everything in court. That's great, Mr. Sterling. And about the job? You can start on Monday. I'll send a car to pick you up at your place. Mr. Sterling, I'm nervous. I've never worked in an office. It'll all work out, Martha. I'm sure of it. Over the weekend, Harrison took the opportunity to get his thoughts in order. His company kept operating normally, the financial problems were being resolved, and he had discovered people he could truly trust. On Monday morning, Martha arrived at Harrison's company wearing a simple but elegant business outfit. She looked nervous but determined. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling." "Good morning, Martha. Ready to start a new chapter?" "Ready." Harrison introduced her to all the employees as the new quality and transparency supervisor. He explained that she would be responsible for ensuring that all the company's processes were conducted ethically and transparently. "Martha, your first task is to review all the company's contracts and partnerships. I want you to identify any irregularity or suspicious situation. How will I know what to look for? Use the same instinct you used to uncover the problems with Julian." Jason also started working at the company that day as an information security consultant. His first task was to implement systems that would prevent unauthorized access to the company's accounts and documents. "Jason, I want it to be impossible for anyone, including myself, to make transfers or sign contracts without double confirmation. I can implement a very secure system, Mr. Sterling." On Tuesday, Dr. Elizabeth called with important news. "Harrison, Julian was notified yesterday. His reaction was interesting." "What do you mean?" "He came to my office offering a deal." "What kind of deal?" "He wants to return half of the embezzled money in exchange for not being criminally prosecuted." "And what did you say?" "That I would consult you, but that I thought it was unlikely you would accept." "You're right. I won't accept any deal. Are you sure? Half would already be over $50 million. I'm sure Julian needs to face the consequences of his actions. Very well. I'll inform him of your refusal." "And how did he react when he was notified?" "According to my assistant who was present, he turned very pale and started trembling. Apparently he didn't expect us to have such solid evidence." On Wednesday, Martha made her first important discovery at her new job. "Mr. Sterling, I found something strange in the supply contracts." "What is it?" "There's a company that supplies office materials charging prices far above market value, almost 3 times more expensive than competitors." "Which company?" "Standard Office Supplies." Harrison examined the contracts. Indeed, the prices were absurdly high. "Martha, can you find out who owns this company?" "Already did. One of the partners is Dr. Arthur's brother-in-law." Yet another irregularity attributed to Julian. Apparently, he had used his position as the company's lawyer to benefit relatives with inflated contracts. "How much has the company already paid them?" "In the last 2 years, almost $400,000. Cancel the contract immediately and look for suppliers with fair prices." "I'm already working on it, Mr. Sterling." On Thursday, Jason discovered irregularities in the company's banking system. "Mr. Sterling, someone was remotely monitoring all of the company's financial transactions." "What do you mean?" "There was spyware installed on the accounting computer. All the information was being sent to an external server." "Can you trace this server?" "Already traced it. It's registered under Jam Consulting." Julian didn't just embezzle money, he also spied on all financial activities to better plan his schemes. "Jason, can you tell how long this software was active?" "Based on the history, about 8 months. Exactly the period leading up to the major embezzlements." "Yes, sir." Julian knew exactly when the company had available money for him to transfer. On Friday, Dr. Elizabeth called with the news Harrison had been waiting for. "Harrison, the judge accepted all our petitions. Julian is formally being prosecuted for fraud, document forgery, and operating a fraudulent financial scheme. And civilly, as well. We're seeking restitution of $120 million plus pain and suffering damages." "When does the trial begin?" "The first hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from now. Does Julian have a way to defend himself?" "Theoretically, yes, but the evidence against him is very solid. It will be hard to dispute." "And the money that's frozen?" It remains frozen until the final decision, but we'll likely get partial release for you within a few weeks. That afternoon, Harrison gathered all company employees for a frank conversation. Everyone, you already know we've been through a complicated situation over the past few weeks. Our former lawyer was systematically embezzling company resources. The employees listened attentively. The good news is that we uncovered everything in time, and we're recovering the funds. The company is safe, and all jobs are secure. "And the sale of the company, Mr. Sterling?" asked the secretary. "The sale is off. I've decided to keep running the company, but now with more transparency and controls." "How is this going to work?" "Martha will coordinate an internal transparency program. Any employee can report irregularities directly to her, without fear of retaliation." "And what if someone tries to pull off a scheme like that in the future?" Jason implemented security systems that make it practically impossible. After the meeting, Harrison was alone in his office reflecting on everything that had happened. In just a few weeks, his life had changed completely. He had discovered who truly deserved his trust and learned valuable lessons about professional relationships. Martha knocked on the door. "Mr. Sterling, may I speak with you?" "Of course, come in. I wanted to thank you again for the opportunity. I'm learning so much. And I want to thank you for saving my company and my livelihood." "Mr. Sterling, may I ask a personal question?" "Go ahead." "How do you feel about this whole situation with Dr. Arthur?" "It's complicated, Martha. On one hand, I'm outraged by the betrayal. On the other, I feel sorry for him." "Sorry?" "Julian destroyed a decades-long career out of greed. He lost everything: reputation, friendships, family. But he chose to do it." "That's true. But it's still sad to see someone destroy themselves like that." Martha reflected for a moment. "Mr. Sterling, can I tell you something my grandmother always used to say?" "Of course." "She used to say that a person's greatest wealth isn't in what they have, but in who they are. Dr. Arthur may have money, but he lost what really matters." Martha's words were deep and true. Julian had sacrificed his integrity for money, becoming poor where it truly counted. Your grandmother was a wise woman. She was. And she also used to say that when a person does the right thing, the universe conspires in their favor. Do you believe that? I do, Mr. Sterling. Look at everything that happened. If I hadn't told you about the conversation I overheard, you would have been deceived. If my son hadn't known about the safes, we wouldn't have gotten the evidence. If you weren't a good person, you wouldn't have listened to me." Harrison smiled. Martha had a simple yet profound way of seeing life. "Martha, you're right. Sometimes things fall into place in an almost magical way." "It's not magic, Mr. Sterling, it's justice. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like, and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us, who are just starting out. Now, continuing. 3 weeks later, on the day of the first hearing, Harrison arrived at the courthouse accompanied by Dr. Elizabeth, Catherine, Martha, and Jason. Julian was already there with 2 defense attorneys. "Good morning, Harrison," Julian greeted coldly. "Good morning, Julian. It's not too late for a settlement. I can return 70 million and we can put an end to this. Julian, there's no more conversation possible between us." The judge, Judge Samuel Miller, was known for being strict in financial fraud cases. He listened carefully to both sides' arguments for 2 hours. Julian's defense argued that all operations had been authorized through valid power of attorney and that the amounts charged for consulting were consistent with the market. Dr. Elizabeth presented all the evidence: the forged documents, the transfers to offshore accounts, the contracts with different amounts, the spyware installed on the company's computer. "Your Honor," said Dr. Elizabeth, "the evidence is clear and unequivocal. The defendant devised a complex fraud scheme that lasted months and caused millions in losses to my client." The defense attorney tried to challenge the validity of the evidence. "Your Honor, the documents presented by the prosecution were obtained improperly, through a breach of a private safe." Dr. Elizabeth, how do you respond to this claim? "Your Honor, the documents were in the office where my client was treated as a client. Furthermore, the evidence is corroborated by official bank documents and computer systems. After hearing all the arguments, the judge withdrew to deliberate. 2 hours later, he returned with the decision. After analyzing all the evidence presented, I find the accusations against the defendant Julian Arthur Miller to be well-founded. The evidence clearly demonstrates the existence of an elaborate and systematic fraudulent scheme. Given the gravity of the facts and the amount involved, I grant all the measures requested by the plaintiff: permanent freezing of the defendant's accounts, full restitution of the diverted funds with monetary correction and interest, and payment of moral damages in the amount of $10 million. Julian went pale upon hearing the ruling. "Your Honor," his lawyer tried, "I request time to appeal." A 15-day period to appeal is granted, but I order the immediate enforcement of the ruling regarding the restitution of the funds. Leaving the courthouse, Harrison felt relieved, but not vindictive. "Dr. Elizabeth, how long until we get the money back?" "With today's ruling, probably within a few weeks. Julian will try to appeal, but he'll hardly be able to overturn the ruling." "And the criminal case?" "The criminal case is separate. It will continue moving forward independently of this ruling." Catherine hugged Harrison. "It's over, my love. It's finally over. This part is over. Now I need to rebuild trust and move forward." Martha approached the group. "Mr. Sterling, may I say something?" "Of course, Martha. You did the right thing. You didn't accept settlements. You didn't give up. You went all the way. That will serve as an example to a lot of people." "Thank you, Martha. Without you, none of this would have been possible. And without you listening to me, it wouldn't have been possible either." Jason also approached. "Dad, Mr. Sterling, now we can work in peace, knowing that the company has solid foundations." "That's true, Jason, and the two of you will be essential to maintaining this integrity." A month later, with all the funds recovered and the financial situation back to normal, Harrison organized a party at the company to celebrate the new phase. All the employees were present, including their families. Martha looked elegant in a new dress, accompanied by Jason and her other 2 children. Catherine mingled with the guests, happy to see her husband recovered. "Everyone," Harrison asked for attention to make a speech. "I want to thank you all for your patience and understanding during this difficult period. We learned important lessons about trust, transparency, and teamwork." The employees applauded. "From today on, our company will operate under even stricter principles of ethics and transparency, and that's possible thanks to people like Martha and Jason, who showed us that doing the right thing always pays off." More applause. "I also want to announce that we're going to create a profit-sharing program for all employees. The company has grown a lot in recent years, and you deserve to share in this success." The employees were ecstatic at the news. After the event, Harrison stayed talking with Martha on the office balcony. "Martha, how are you feeling about your new life?" "Very well, Mr. Sterling. I'm still getting used to it, but I really like the work." "And your children?" "Jason loves working here. The other 2 are proud to see that their mother moved up in the world." "You've always been a valuable person, Martha. You just never had the opportunity to show it." "Mr. Sterling, may I make a confession?" "Of course." "When I saw you about to sign that contract, I thought to myself, if I don't do anything, I'll feel guilty for the rest of my life. And what if I hadn't listened to you? Then I would have done my part. The rest wouldn't have been my responsibility. Martha, what would you do if you were in my shoes when you discovered all the betrayal?" "I think I would do exactly what you did, sir. See it through to the end, not accept any deals. Even knowing it would be a long and exhausting process. Some things in life have no price, Mr. Sterling. Dignity is one of them." Harrison smiled. Martha always had deep insights about complex situations. "Martha, what do you think will happen to Julian?" "I don't know, Mr. Sterling, but I know he'll have to live with the weight of what he did. That's worse than any punishment." "Don't you feel any anger toward him?" "I feel pity. He destroyed his own life out of greed. And if he comes to you asking for forgiveness?" "I'll forgive him, Mr. Sterling. Not for his sake, but for mine. Anger only hurts the one who feels it." Once again, Martha's simple wisdom impressed Harrison. "Martha, May I ask you a personal question? Of course. How did you develop this way of seeing life? Working 15 years as a cleaning lady, Mr. Sterling. You see the worst and the best in people. You learn to tell who's worth it and who isn't. And was I worth it? You always were, Mr. Sterling. That's why I decided to help. 6 months later, Harrison's company was thriving more than ever. The transparency program implemented by Martha had created a healthier and more productive work environment. Jason had developed security systems that served as a model for other companies. Julian had lost all his resources and was working as a freelance attorney to pay off his debts. His reputation in the market was ruined, and he was facing criminal charges that could result in prison time. Catherine, have you regretted anything in this whole story? Harrison asked on a quiet evening at home. I regret not paying more attention to the business earlier. If I had known more about the company, maybe I would have noticed the irregularities sooner. And what about us having trusted Julian? No, Harrison. Trust isn't a mistake. Taking advantage of someone's trust is the mistake. You're right. And you? Do you regret anything? I regret not having valued people like Martha sooner. She worked 15 years practically invisible to me. But you were always polite to her. Being polite isn't the same as truly valuing someone. I said hello, but I didn't know anything about her life, her dreams. And now you do. I'm learning. I found out she always wanted her children to have better opportunities than she had, and that her biggest dream is to buy her own house. She'll manage with her new salary. She'll manage much more than that. At the end of the year, Harrison summoned Martha to a private meeting. Martha, I want to propose something to you. What is it, Mr. Sterling? I want to offer you a partnership in the company. What do you mean? 5% ownership stake. You'll officially be a partner in Sterling Ventures. Martha was shocked by the proposal. Mr. Sterling, that's too much. I didn't do anything to deserve being a partner. Martha, you saved this company. Without your intervention, I would have lost everything. But I only did what I thought was right. That's exactly why you deserve it. I want people who do what's right as partners in my business. But, Mr. Sterling, I don't understand anything about partnerships, shares. You'll learn, and in the meantime, Jason can help you with the technical matters. How much is 5% of the company worth? About 10 million. Martha had to sit down when she heard the amount. Mr. Sterling, that's too much money. Never in my life did I imagine. Martha, you deserve every penny. And on top of that, you'll continue receiving your share of the company's annual profits. How much would that be? Last year, 5% of the profits would have been about 2 million. Martha began to cry with emotion. Mr. Sterling, my children will be able to study at a good university. I'll be able to buy a house. You'll be able to do much more than that, Martha, and you'll deserve every bit of it. Why are you doing this? Because you and Jason have become part of my family, and because I want this company to keep having people of integrity even after I retire. I accept, Mr. Sterling, and I promise to keep working with the same honesty as always. I know you will, Martha. That's why I'm making this offer. 2 years later, Sterling Ventures had become one of the most respected companies in New York City, known both for the quality of its services and for its transparency in business. Martha had adapted perfectly to her role as partner, bringing a unique perspective to the company's decisions. Jason had expanded his knowledge and become the director of technology. Julian was serving a 3-year sentence for fraud and document forgery. He had lost everything: money, reputation, family, and friends. He lived in a small boarding house and worked as an office boy at a law firm to pay off his remaining debts. Harrison, said Catherine one night, have you ever thought about how our lives changed since that morning when Martha whispered in your ear? I think about it every day. If you had signed that contract, we would be bankrupt and probably divorced from the stress, and Martha would still be invisible doing janitorial work, and Jason would still be doing odd maintenance jobs. It's amazing how a single moment can change so many lives. The moment was important, but the decision to listen and act is what made the difference. You're right. A lot of people would have ignored the whisper of a cleaning woman. It was the best decision I ever made, Catherine. At the company's Christmas party, Harrison gave his annual speech to the employees. Everyone, another year of success for our company. We grew 25%, hired 15 new employees, and maintained our reputation for transparency and quality. The employees applauded. But the most important thing isn't the numbers. The most important thing is that we built a company where everyone feels valued and respected. I want to especially thank Martha, our partner and transparency supervisor, who continues to be our moral compass. Martha, elegant in a party dress, waved to her colleagues with a shy but happy smile. And to Jason, our director of technology, who ensured that our company is an example of security and innovation. Jason, now wearing well-tailored suits, also waved to his colleagues. Before I wrap up, I want to tell you all a story. 3 years ago, I was about to make the biggest mistake of my professional life. A humble employee had the courage to warn me about the error, even knowing she could be fired for it. The employees listened attentively. That employee taught me that sometimes the most important voices are the ones we least expect to hear, and that character has no price and no diploma. That's why our company will continue to be a place where anyone, regardless of their position, can and should speak up when they notice something wrong. That's our guarantee that we will always do the right thing, even when it's hard. The applause was long and emotional. After the party, Harrison, Catherine, Martha, and Jason stayed behind, talking in the conference room. Martha, how do you feel looking back at everything that happened? I feel grateful, Mr. Sterling. Grateful that I had the courage to speak up, grateful that you listened to me, grateful for everything that came after. And you, Jason? I feel proud of my mother, Mr. Sterling. She was always brave, but that day she was heroic. Catherine, what about you? I feel like we discovered the true value of people. Money comes and goes, but character lasts forever. And I feel like I learned the most important lesson of my life, that we should always be open to hearing truths, even when they come from unexpected places. Martha stood up to leave. Mr. Sterling, may I say one last thing? Of course, Martha. When I whispered, "Don't sign that," in your ear, I had no idea I was changing so many people's lives. What do you mean? You didn't lose everything. Jason and I gained opportunities. The company's employees have a better work environment, and even Dr. Arthur, in a way, learned an important lesson. Do you think Julian learned something? I think so. The last time I saw him, he seemed like a humbler person. Where did you see him? On the street near my house. He greeted me and apologized for what he had done. And what did you say? I said I had already forgiven him and that I hoped he would rebuild his life honestly. And how did he react? He thanked me and said he would try to be a better person. Harrison smiled. Even after everything, Martha maintained her generosity and capacity to forgive. Martha, you're a special person. No, Mr. Sterling, I'm just an ordinary person who tries to do what's right. Maybe that's exactly what makes you special. The end. So what did you think of this moving story of courage and justice? Tell us in the comments which part touched you the most and whether you would have the same courage as Martha. If this story inspired you, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that show how doing the right thing always pays off. Your opinion is very important to us.